Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Exploring AI webinar. I'm just going to give everyone a minute to shuffle in here. All right. Looks like everyone's coming in here. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you go to the next slide. Perfect. So welcome to Exploring AI, Introducing Amplify with Matt Fischer and Jason Heilman. I'm just going to go over some quick housekeeping items before I pass the baton over to them. So the session today will be recorded and shared in an email tomorrow to all of you guys. Everyone will be on mute for the duration of the session, but we do encourage you to ask questions in the dedicated Q&A panel, and we'll try to get to them at the end of the session. If we don't get to your question, we'll definitely make sure to follow up with you guys directly. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Jason and Matt.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome hi, Jason.
Hey,
At Engage, Jason and I, we launched Amplify. And so we're going to do a little bit more of a casual version of our vision for innovation this morning. So if you were at Engage and you saw our vision for innovation, this is going to look shockingly familiar to you. If not, prepare to be wowed. So Amplify is a massive leap forward in terms of Bullhorn's overall AI solutions. And our goal is that it becomes a new way that everybody will recruit and sell. And what it is fundamentally is a collection of these agents that are off in the background doing work, and then a whole bunch of skills that are actually present and infused at the desk level, meaning for recruiters and salespeople to interact with directly in the application. And it allows you to blend the human labor, which is your recruiters and salespeople, obviously, and digital labor, which is all of this AI that is going to be working in the background on your behalf. And the reason that it's such a step forward is because it actually behaves like a recruiter. It's not just assisting you, like the way our AI assistant assists you. It's actually acting on your behalf. And so at the highest level, that's what this thing is. And Jason and I are going to show it to you today. But before we get into the quote unquote demo portion of it, we're also going to set a little bit of context about how we got here.
yeah. This is the next or last step in this journey or the current one. So it all started though with automation. So it's interesting that our AI journey started with not AI, but it is the foundation that all this sits on. And it's something that we've been on for years. And it's one of those great kind of foundational steps because automation has been delivering tons of value to you and to your customers for years. And what we've seen is we've got 3.5 billion automated actions that are happening all the time. That was in the last 12 months. 60% of our customers are using automation, and our automation customers are dramatically more effective. They've got a 30% more placements per recruiter, 36% than our customers who aren't using automation. So that was a very important baseline step that everyone took. And then AI hit. So if we go back to 2023, AI came in hot and heavy. The first wave of it was all about assistance. So this was things that your team was already doing, just helping you to do those tasks more quickly and efficiently, doing using AI, using LLMs. And in this phase, we learned a lot about what was hype and what was reality. So not only did it deliver value and kind of assisting, it also helped us all to learn together.
Totally. So we get this great foundation of automation, and then we have this next wave of AI, which also happens super, super fast. I think in the last 12 months, like this concept of agentic AI has become mainstream, and everybody sort of heard about it. And we actually launched our agents version I think in the beginning of this year, roughly. And what's so important about this is everything that Jason just talked about, with automation and assistance are sort of helping recruiters be more productive. But our agentic AI is actually doing tasks on behalf of the recruiter, and not just one task, but like orchestrated across an entire workflow for the recruiter. And the reason we were able to respond so quickly is because of what Jason just said. You all have a head start, or at least everybody using automation and assistants have a head start, which is that you're already orchestrating this workflow workflow through automation. And so essentially what we did is we started to AI enable automation, and that resulted in all of these agents that are off in the background doing a whole bunch of stuff. And in a very short amount of time, we have done 115 million AI actions on top of the 3.5 billion automations that Jason was talking about. And if you look at both agents and assistants, we have 700 customers already using our solutions. Which has happened pretty quickly, and I think that's pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about what the agents do, because these are a fundamental part of Amplify. I said Amplify is a collection of these agents plus all this other stuff that we'll show you. So you've got to get the agents working, and you've got to get them tuned so that they can go off and they can do this work for you in the background. And the highest level way to think about this is the agents are autonomously working the top of your funnel. So essentially, you turn it on for a set of jobs, and you go from a new job coming in the system being opened to screen candidates all the way out the other side without the recruiter engaging. So it's enriching the job description, it's doing matching, and it is conducting an actual screen for you so that by the time the recruiter gets involved, they're dealing with candidates that are already qualified. And that is, I mean, I think that's a pretty big paradigm shift, because let's just assume the recruiter is making the same amount of connections today as they were pre-AI. So let's say they're making, 100 phone calls. Previously, if they made 100 phone calls or 100 connections, maybe they're going to get 10 or 15 people that are the right fit for a job. But because you have these agents that are automatically screening and matching and doing that work for you, you're making 100 phone calls, those same phone calls, you're getting 50, 60, maybe even more people that are a qualified fit for the job. So that's why you get this increase in productivity that we're talking about. And so we've done this for all these customers, and our expectation was that customers would see an improvement in their KPIs, and because of this, and they did.
Yeah, and so the example that Matt gave is a perfect idea of at the desk level the change. And this is kind of stepping back. So our customers that are using this are finding more qualified candidates. So 51% more submissions to jobs. And because they've got those, they're able to then submit faster. So they're submitting 17% faster. And then they're working more jobs, whether that's because they are putting jobs that they didn't used to work kind of on autopilot, or the recruiters are just covering more roles. They're working more, and all of this ultimately results in what I think is probably the most important: a higher fill rate. So 22% improvement in the fill rate.
And that's 22% on top of the productivity that customers have already gotten with automation and all the other solutions. So it kind of compounds as you do more and more of this stuff. The other thing that I think is very important, I don't want to harp on it. I think actually our last webinar series we talked about this, but I do think it's important, is the talent actually likes it. It is a myth that talent does not want to interact with AI. They actually do, because the alternative for them is the black hole, right? They apply to a job and they don't hear anything, and that is all too common. And so when we survey talent that goes through this process, the average rate or the rating is 4.2 out of 5, which is like close to 90% of candidates are saying, yes, I actually thought that was a pretty good experience. And that's because it beats the experience that they're used to. So if this is holding anybody back, if you're saying, oh, I don't want to, put AI or non-humans in front of my talent, it should not hold you back. In fact, you should lean into it, because it's something that is fundamentally better both for you and for the talent.
Yep. And it's the new norm. I mean, people are
No,
coming to
no,
it. They've
totally.
accepted it. All right. So all of those agents, plus automation, plus the assistant, all were the foundation for Amplify. And we're going to now show you the additional components of how we integrate that all into your existing workflow to reach the productivity gains that we'll expect from Amplify. So you can see we've kind of got like a chart here of how we expect your productivity to increase. We don't exactly know what it is. We've got the early evidence from the slide we just shown. We've seen the 36% increase from automation, and we expect that, as Matt mentioned, your productivity to continue to compound up. So now, what are these skills? What is it doing? So we already talked about some of these, but this is exactly what we're going to demo. We're almost going to demo it in this order. So the skills of Amplify are it allows you to source, so you can quickly find candidates in Bullhorn and external job boards. And once you've brought those in, the job opens and you'll immediately find the best candidates using the match, and they'll be ranked by those that are most likely to be hired. And then it'll screen them. With Matt said, we've got our virtual interview, actually having a conversation with your candidates. And then it turns back over to your recruiters, where they can then use our tools to submit.
Yeah, so last year we talked about a new submission workflow. If anybody was at Engage last year, And we said we were going to like do submit with, I think we called it Copilot or whatever we said at that point. But and the feedback we actually received was we don't really need help with the workflow. We need help making the submission packets and formatting resumes because that takes a ton of time to collect all the documents, to take the resume that that you've uploaded and actually fit it to your branding and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so the submit skill is a very cool, we'll show you this, it's a very cool blend of a bunch of automation that's creating the packet, but also allows you to use generative AI to make real-time changes to the resume as a recruiter. So that's pretty sweet. That's what the submit skill is. And then we also heard you loud and clear that we should help accelerate sales efforts, which is an area, frankly, that we have not been hyper focused on previously, but we are now quite focused on. And there's a few sales skills. One of them is research. So this is making sure that your teams are better prepared for meetings. This is actually really important and a great use case for AI because you've got all this unstructured data in Bullhorn. You've got not only your emails and your notes and all of the conversation stuff, but you also have all the history on a company or a job, how many people have been submitted, how long it took to fill it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now you can actually interact directly with the application, and you can have it do research on your behalf as you prep for meetings and stuff like that. And the present thing I just talked about, this is the sales side of it, which is how do you take that same thing I was mentioning on the recruiter side, but leverage it on the sales side to market your top candidates as well. And we'll show you that too.
And the last one is the outreach. And this is the one that I think I'm most excited about because it's such a good example of blending automation, AI, and the human together. So this makes it basically where your sales team is able to launch multi-step sequences, all of that with your best practices built in. AI will go in and personalize every message, but then your sales team gets to confirm everything looks right. And then when they kick it off, automation just runs that in the background, looks for how the contact is interacting with your messages, and flags the rep when it's time for them to get back involved.
Nice. So those are all of the skills it has. So we showed you this, well, at least we told you what the skills are, how it behaves like a recruiter, and then we showed you the agents. And what is, I think, very unique and important and special about Amplify is those skills are embedded directly into your workflow where you're already working. They're deeply infused into Bullhorn. And that is something that's really, really important because it allows you to now do stuff like chat with Amplify in the same way you would have a conversation with ChatGPT. Bullhorn and Amplify has all of the context of all of the records that you're on, and you can have a conversation with it, like the research skill I just told you is a perfect example of when you may want to do that. But even more importantly, you can kick off agents directly from within the workflow. So if you have a list and you've searched and you've got a whole bunch of candidates that you think are a good fit for a job, you don't have to just have the agents running in the background. You can actually pick the candidates you want and you can go ahead and send them a screen. So we're taking all of this background stuff and we're bringing it directly into the application. And then we have this thing called Amplify Studio, which is essentially the way that you configure your entire AI experience. And you make it personalized and you make sure that all of the prompts that you're using throughout the system are finely tuned exactly to your workflow. And there's also a fundamental point here, and we'll show it in a couple of different ways, which is your job is somewhat changing if you're a recruiter or if you're a salesperson now, which is you've got the power of these agents that are off doing stuff on your behalf. You have to be able to manage them, and we have to make it easy for you to manage them and understand what they're doing and know when to intervene as the human in the process. So all that's right at your fingertips in Amplify now. It's directly embedded in the workflow.
So that's kind of the next world of Amplify, but just want to call out, you can still put it in autonomous mode. So like people are doing today, like those results that we showed earlier, all that's kind of working in the background. So you get a low margin job, a VMS role maybe that's low bill rate. You come from the VMS, you probably wouldn't have even worked it maybe in the past. All those can still keep running through. Or you can have maybe the most important job that you've got and have it autonomous to the match step, but then have the recruiter get involved. So this isn't like an or, it's an and. You can do both modes, and it's just kind of up to you to kind of set those triggers how you want.
Totally. The other thing that's awesome is that it's cross-platform. So if you are a Bullhorn Recruitment Cloud customer on Salesforce, we are actually bringing everything we just talked about and bringing Amplify to Salesforce using a combination of our agents plus Agentforce, because now on Salesforce you have a whole other set of tools at your disposal from an AI perspective in Agentforce. And so how we do this is very specific to the Salesforce platform because we have Agentforce at our disposal, but the outcomes are going to be the same regardless of whether or not you do it on the Bullhorn platform or on Bullhorn Recruitment Cloud on Salesforce. But it's important that everybody knows that it's cross-platform. And so in the end of the day, you have all of the stuff we just said. You've got the agents, you've got the skills, you've got it cross-platform, you have the ability to run it in autonomous mode, and you have the ability to have it deeply embedded in your workflow. All that entire thing is what Amplify is. And I said it before, and I just want to reiterate it before we show the demo, is that this is how human and digital labor will coexist because it gives you the ability to have as many virtual recruiters as you need. You've essentially got virtual recruiters in your pocket that you can deploy at will. And so the way I think we should think about this because of that is that Amplify is really additive. It's like Jason said, it's not an or, it's an and. And just like automation, no human was ever going to send 3.5 billion messages. No human is ever going to be able to respond to every single job application you get, but now you can because you have digital labor that is amplifying you, that's extending your reach, and it's letting you do more than you've ever been able to do. So that's the fundamental premise here. And so sort of with that framing, we're going to do a highlight reel. There's another webinar that follows ours. I don't know when it is. We'll at the dates at the very end here. We're going to get into even more specific. So we're going to do a little bit of a flyby here and just show you a high level of all the skills. And then there's more webinars after this where we'll dig into it in more detail. So with that, let's do it.
All right, so we're on a job. You can see here we've got our recommended candidates, just like you hopefully any of our search and match customers can see today. But we've also got this new button up top, which is our Amplify. And this is how you're going to chat with Bullhorn and Amplify, just like you would ChatGPT. The big difference is, of course, it's in context. It knows all the information about what's happening in Bullhorn. And one of the big upgrades you'll see here is as soon as you load it, it's going to give you some of the things that you think are most important. So this is all configurable by you, but we've got it set up here to show some key meta information about the job, how long it's been open, what the screens are. And then it's going to recommend actions of what we think you should do next. So you can just click on those and take actions right from the system. But you can still choose your own path. So just like with the assistant today, you can go in, you can start to just type out whatever you want to do. It'll kind of like type ahead and find one of the existing prompts if you've already built that or one of the existing skills. Or you can just ask whatever you want. For now, though, we're going to kind of keep it on the rails and we're going to take one of these suggestions. So it says it thinks that we should look at the top 25 candidates because you can see we've got nobody in the pipeline right now. So again, the big difference here is now I can click on that and it's right in the workflow. So it's going to take me from my job over to that list of candidates that it's identified for me. And just a quick note, this is the new search. So everyone has gotten a facelift on their search. I think we've got like 100 customers on it now. It's faster, it's more intuitive. We're hoping to get more and more people moved by the end of the year. So we're going to talk a little bit about search here, not the whole thing, but this is the new search interface.
Yeah, can you go back real quick? Yeah, so this is a new search interface. Like Jason said, we're just gonna kind of hit the AI highlights, not everything that it can do. The first you see is that relevancy there. This is, as folks I'm sure know, we acquired TextKernel last year. We have been doing our own match models and our own ranking with our own sea of data and our own tech for a long time. This is sort of the culmination of all of that effort, which is all the TextKernel stuff plus the Bullhorn stuff going into a very accurate matching model so that as you're running searches, the people that are most likely to be placed are now closer to the top. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. And then there's a bunch of other sort of AI features when you click into the actual search itself. The first is auto building. So, one of the benefits of this type of AI is that it makes the ramp time for your junior recruiters significantly faster. And one of the reasons it does that is because they have to learn less stuff, right? Because the system is doing more for them. And this is a great example of that. So instead of teaching your recruiters how to write searches, they just come into this thing. The job will be there. The job description will be filled out because of Amplify. All that stuff will be there, and it will automatically build the search for you and construct the keywords. Similar to the ranking, like I said, we've got Bullhorn, SourceBreaker, text kernels, taxonomy, all of that stuff integrated into our keyword expansion library now, and all of that powered by our auto build models that are just essentially generating the searches. So it just takes a lot of training and steps out of the process here for you to go and build the search. Obviously, you have all of the other filters that you would have normally as part of Bullhorn search. And then there's this really cool thing in here around boosting. So we know that there are certain things that are correlated with a higher match. For example, if somebody took a screen and they scored well on it, that's an indicator that they should be boosted in their results. If somebody's worked for you in the past 12 months or they've had recent activity, that boosts them up in the results. And then we have this last one here, which is recent positive reference. Something I just wanted to highlight because we for a long time have sort of been touting the benefits of the overall Bullhorn platform and the ecosystem, and you've got all these providers that are building stuff on top of the platform. One of those is Ref Assured, who is a marketplace partner. They're out there collecting references at scale, and so that's a really good indicator if somebody has a positive recent firsthand reference that they should be boosted to the top of the list. And so it allows you to do that too. So there's all sorts of cool stuff about how the kind of the platform comes together in addition to just the resume and profile searching and keyword matching to give you the best results in the search.
And then we just built that search. It's awesome. Uh, we also can put this kind of on autonomous mode. So I built that search. Let's say these are jobs that I work on a regular basis. This is a project management role, probably very common. So now you can pick all the boards you want, including Bullhorn. And anytime that someone is added to one of those boards that match your criteria, you'll automatically be notified. Or if you want to, we can have it set where it'll automatically add those candidates. We're kind of working with some of our early customers about the right way to do that, to not use too many of your job board views, et cetera. But the key thing is here, you can set up these searches and always be aware and keep all of your recruiters in Bullhorn rather than on the job boards and get those people just pushed rather than that your recruiters going and pull them. So then, let's go back. We've got our search saved. So anytime I get these jobs, I'm going to be notified. But I've got this job to fill today. I need to go work this job. So this is what Matt referred to earlier. So I've done this search, I've looked at these people, I've picked the best candidates, and now I want to pick out my top, however many this is, 10, 15, and I want to add them to the screening agent. So you can see this add to screening agent is in the actions menu. There's kind of a new sub tab for all of your AI or Amplify actions. So I can now add them to the screening agent where they're going to be invited to interview with a virtual recruiter. You can see it'll basically look like this. So probably recognize this. This is just the good old-fashioned Bullhorn submission screen. So again, we want to keep it familiar and ingrained in your existing workflows. But there's some additional points here. You can see it's inviting them to the screen. It's showing the screening questions so your team has visibility into what's going to happen in the next step. And it's going to ask these questions.
Yeah, so also worth calling out that we're using AI to generate the questions. Go back to my junior recruiter thing. It is better than a junior recruiter at doing it. You can calibrate how you want it to ask those questions. Like you could have it be a pretty technical screen. You could have it be a high level screen. You can add questions manually if you want to do that. You can change questions. Like it's basically just setting them up and saying, hey, based on this job, we think we're going to ask this. And then you can change them. And there's also, and Jason's going to show this in a second, but there's also the ability to ask some questions via voice and some questions via chatbot. So you don't always have to have a voice agent asking like basic questions like what's your salary or whatever. So all that's configurable. We're not going to show you that interface, but all that's configurable on the job level.
Yep. Okay, so we've got our questions. I'm going to add them to the screening agent. And this is what happens. So now we're going to flip over. I'm the candidate. We're not just making kind of outbound phone calls. And I don't know if anybody saw the recent Apple announcement. Anytime there's a call from an unknown number now, they're automatically filtering that. So we very intentionally are staying away from just calling people. And instead, we're sending them an email or a text message, usually both. And then whenever they're available and ready, they can click on the button to start that screening. And if they don't do it the first time, we keep following up. But let's say they do. You can see here, we're going to send them to your website. So our virtual recruiter is going to pop over the top of your website. And the first step are just to ask some basic screening questions. So things that are kind of like yes, no, or maybe it's salary. And we're going to ask those questions just via chat. And then we're going to say, all right, now we're going to do a virtual screen and we're going to actually have a voice discussion. We're not going to play one here, But just to be very clear, this is a chat looking interface, but you can see this kind of talk wave of Jane Jones. They will actually have a conversation with the virtual recruiter, and it's going to ask those questions that you outlined. But the key important difference here is it's going to ask good follow-up questions. So it's not just going to ask the question in a rote way and kind of go through it. I don't know if you want to read this, but basically you can see here, we asked a question. The person kind of generally answered like, yeah, I know project management. And they're like, well, tell me about some experience. So it's going to keep digging, and it can kind of dig as hard as you want. That's kind of a setting to get to the point where it's actually properly answering those questions for you.
Totally. It's funny because like we on our recordings of this thing, you can't actually even really tell who the AI agent is and who the human is with the voice. So I could have read it and it could have been an AI agent. You never know.
Right? We could have done.
Um, all right, so that's that. Okay, so essentially, we just showed you this example for one screen, right? For one candidate on one job. That's what we just showed you. But what's actually happening is Amplify is out doing this for all of your jobs, right? Thousands of jobs, and it's doing it for millions of candidates. And these agents are out there, they're matching, they're screening, they're sourcing, they're doing all that stuff on your behalf, and they're doing it without human involvement. So not only are they doing it for millions of candidates and millions of jobs, they're doing it for all the recruiters. So that you just like in your brain, just think about how this just drives an incredible level of scale without humans actually being involved in it. And some people go, "Oh, does that mean the recruiter's job is less important?" And my argument is the complete opposite of that. It actually means the recruiter's job, it might be different, but it's more important because they're now responsible for managing and supervising these agents and knowing when to provide the human touch at the right time. So it really is changing their job and it's optimizing them. And so that's a really important concept because now when you come back into the application, let's just pretend that it's 12 hours later, right? And we went and did the thing that Jason just did. You invited all these people to the screen. This thing's out there screening a whole bunch of people, and they're taking the screens, and other people are applying, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so time lapse forward, and you're now a recruiter that comes into the dashboard on the job that you are working, and you can see what the agents have been up to. You can see how many candidates they've matched. You can see how many people applied. You can see how many people they've screened. And you can also see how far along to hitting your goal you are. So in this case, we're saying, hey, we expected to have 5 submissions for this job, but we're only at 3. There's a little visual indicator for that. And so you've got this Amplify dashboard that's showing you that pipeline, what the agents are doing. It's also showing you suggested actions now because you're the human who needs to go make sense of this and make sure that you're putting the right people through the process from this point forward. And so it's showing the selected actions and it's showing you all the candidates that it's screened. You can see some have already been submitted. You can see some are screened and they have a really good score, but nobody has talked to them yet. So a great indicator that, hey, now me as a recruiter, I need to do a follow up with Jane, in this case, Jane Jones, because she did a great job on the screen and I want to advance her to the next step.
All right. So we found Jane. We saw that we have to do more to fill this role. So I'm going to go jump over to Jane. So again, this is just like we showed over on the job. I went to Jane, saw the profile. I'm going to click on Amplify, and it's going to kind of just give me a quick summary about Jane. Again, in my case, I configured this to show the quick hits about our background with them. And then it's going to show some activity about how I've interacted with Jane in the past, an overview of her profile, and again, suggestions. And we can see here, Jane just took a screen. So Amplify is saying, hey, you probably want to go look at the screening report, don't you? So if we click on that, it's going to now open up our screening report. And so what you'll see here is just kind of an at a glance view of Jane and her summary. So we've got the full transcript, we've got all the details, but what we're really trying to do is make it so your recruiter can come here, see that Jane's got a high score, give a quick summary, and then pick up the phone and call them. We don't want them to have to go and read the transcript and understand the conversation. What the recruiter should think is, okay, they scored well. They've already answered a lot of the basic questions. It even has a Q&A where the candidate can ask the AI questions. So the candidate's gotten their questions answered. So now my conversation with Jane Jones isn't going to be talking about the basics. It's going to be building the relationship and closing the candidate on the job and the pay rate. So you just jump forward multiple steps in the process. You're at the call that usually would have taken hundreds of phone calls to get the Jane Joneses of the world, then 20 minutes on every call to understand Jane Jones, then 5 or 10 minutes at the end to close. You jumped all the way to that closing step.
Nice.
All right.
Okay,
Now,
so
yeah,
you
go
want to
ahead.
do this? So yeah, we can do the submit bit. So now this is what we're talking about with the submit or the present for Amplify. So you can take an action directly from the screening report and you can submit them with Amplify as well. Like I was saying before, it's a little bit less of a workflow assistant and a little bit more of a submission packet assistant. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so you got this new present UI, and so what we're not showing in this demo is like all of the stuff in Amplify Studio, which is the administrative experience for this. But essentially, what you're doing and what one of your administrators is doing is they're creating packets, and those packets have got instructions for how you want to format the resume, what the template should look like for the branded resume, what other documents you might want to include, like a credential or another file attachment or whatever. So somebody is setting up what those packets are. And now you, as the recruiter, are able to see this cool little split screen where on one side you've got the candidate's resume, which in this case intentionally looks pretty bad. And then on the other side, if you pick the packet like Jason just did, you get the formatted resume like magic. And on the formatted resume, again, this was fed by a template that somebody went and configured, but you still have control. You may want to change something, right? And so this, I think this is like Jason loves the outreach agent. I think this thing is really cool. Not that I don't love the outreach agents, I do. You can go to the summary, for example, and you can highlight it, and then you can just give it instructions. You can just ask it to do stuff. So like in this case, if I typed, hey, I want to reformat this executive summary, but I want it to be bullet points, or I want to shorten it, or I want to do whatever to it, I can do it and it will make the changes. And you can do that anywhere on the screen. And so it's a very similar concept to what Jason was saying with the screening. It just shoots you forward like a whole bunch of minutes or hours, right? So instead of having to like put the packet together and do the annoying thing of actually formatting the resume and then downloading it to Word and blah 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 blah, all the stuff you have to do, you just hit a button and then voila, and then you can modify what you need to do. So like it's taking, a half an hour, an hour of annoying administrative work to build it down to just a couple of minutes. It's pretty cool.
Right. All right. So that's amplified for the recruiter. So hopefully you can see like that is a massive leap forward. And we're kind of following on some of the questions over on the side here. I just want to kind of call out a few responses to that. And I guess most the biggest point here, I think, is this really is a different way of thinking about how you deliver on behalf of your customers. And while there are very easy steps to take to jump you ahead and start to differentiate from your competitors, this really is a rethinking of the way that you're able to deliver. And it requires stakeholders both from the business side and the technology side. This isn't an independent, sit on the side piece of technology that you can just kind of put up and then hope people use it. It really does require you to just kind of think differently about how much scale you can push through your business with the same team. With all that said, let's talk about how Amplify can accelerate the sales side as well. Okay. So here's that screen again. Hopefully everybody's now recognizing again, it's got the key details up top. It's got what I've configured to be the most important thing. So here I've got a summary. I just want to have a summary of my relationship with this person. And again, we've got our recommendations. In this case, I don't actually want to use one of the recommendations because I see there's kind of a little bit of an issue with Bill. And before I go do anything, I want to learn more about that. So I want to go ahead and summarize all the conversations that we've had over the last 12 months.
Okay, so we do that. So if you just gonna go back to that, because I want to gloss over what's going on there with like these different things you can pick. So again, to go back to the Amplify Studio thing, this is important. We're trying to find this balance between like, yeah, you want people to be able to chat and ask questions, but you don't want to force people to type out everything that is common that they're going to go and ask. You also know there might be a really good prompt that you want other people to reuse because it gives you the results that you want. Think of it like a saved search, right? Somebody goes and builds a great search and want other people to be able to run it. That concept is super, super important because you go and configure those things and then you push them out and then they show up wherever you want them to show up. You can pick the ones that run when you open up the chat. I just want people to think about that because, it's really important that, we're calibrating these things to maximize the impact. So anyway, so you click on the summarize recent interactions, you get all the interactions. And in this case, it's very obvious that there is a decreasing sentiment. Again, what this thing is doing is it's looking at all of the activity that has happened with Bill. It's looking at all the emails, all the notes. It's looking at all of the history, like, oh, maybe we haven't actually, we used to do 10 jobs a year with this guy. Now we haven't done any. All that stuff Amplify is completely aware of and it's factoring into the summary. So Now I actually want to show the chat. So if I want to go and type something and say, okay, I know I have to reach out to Bill. Bill clearly needs to have we need to have a conversation with Bill. Now here's an example of something that maybe isn't common that I just thought of myself, that I want to go and ask. And I'm going to type, can you help me find some personal information about Bill? I'm going to click go, and it's going to, again, go look through all the notes and emails. And, maybe it could find something, maybe it couldn't, but in this case, it could. I have an email where I find out that Bill is a fan of the Boston Celtics, and I know a little bit of information about his daughter. So now I have something that I can include in my communication with him that's a little bit more personal. So that's a good example of where you may just want to kind of go quote unquote off script and just start talking and using the chat. The other thing that's important, and Jason had already talked about this too, which is we're providing recommendations to drive you through a workflow, but you're also able to take actions from this as well. So if you wanted to take the contents of this chat and stick it in an email or put it in a note or use data that came back from this to update a field in a record, whatever, you can do that, which is really cool. And the other thing you can do is you can take an action to add to an outreach campaign from a contact in this case. So that's what we're going to go and do. And then we're going to go configure a multi-sequence communication out to Bill.
Yep. All right, so we're going to add Bill to this outreach campaign. And again, as a sales rep, before I start sending this person a number of messages, I just want to get a sense now. So I know who Bill is, some of the work we've done with him, some of our interactions, something personal. Now, here's the last step of an overview of all of the communications and kind of my relationship with them. But it then says, okay, we think you should add him to a re-engagement campaign. You can see we've got that as our recommended campaign to add them to. And so now here's the overview. So this is a lot like tools like SalesLoft or Gong, those that are kind of the more horizontal sales acceleration platforms, where you get all of the control of one-off messages sent by users, but all the power of AI and automation with all of your best practices built in. And obviously, the big part that differentiates this is one, it's only for staffing and recruiting. So we've got a few little secret tricks that only staffing recruiting cares about. But also, it's all built on the same foundation as automation. So while this is a new release, kind of all the hard work of orchestrating all these different conversations, seeing who's doing what, having all the reporting, all of that's already there. So you're using the same tool to do your kind of one-to-many marketing-led campaigns as you are the individual sequences running on the sales rep. So I built this, and what happened here is your administrator kind of built out these various campaigns we kind of talked about with your best practices built in, and it gives, as part of each message that's going out, it gives him instruction to say, send a message that basically says this, but I want you to rewrite it to make it very specific to Bill. So the same way that we used Amplify to learn about our communication history with Bill, when we rewrite these messages, we look at all of your previous interactions to make it much more specific. So this is the personalized message that this recruiter sees, or sorry, the sales rep sees, and now they can go in and change it however they want to. So they all start with a template, but they can go in and change anything that they want to, whether that be with AI or manually.
Yeah, I mean, just a good example of like dropping in that personal nugget that you just learned. I mean, the thing is, what Jason is saying is one of the most important pieces, which is, and again, it's kind of like this concept of the balancing act, right? You want to provide templates, you want to use AI to create personalized messages, and you want to take as much work off the recruiter or the salesperson, or in this case, the salesperson as you can. But you also know that you have to have some level of control over it. So you need to be able to edit it and put in the thing that you want to do or modify the message or whatever. So this is just an illustration of that really nice blend of, AI doing a lot of the work, but then you also having control where you need it.
All right. And let's just do one more example. You can see we've got emails and messages. So again, we've seen a handful of tasks or questions about LinkedIn. Today, LinkedIn does not allow staffing firms to, via their API, send in-mail messages. So we've got this task to remind you to send the in-mail. And you would just copy and paste that and put that in. So it's all written for them. They just have to go do the actual task of sending it. The other thing I kind of alluded to is how this is very staffing specific. So obviously, one of the things that many of you do whenever you're marketing to your customers are highlight the most placeable candidates, highlight people that are your best candidates in the pool. So this is where in a message, you can personalize it not only to the contact, but also about a candidate who might be a good fit for the roles that you've worked with them on. And again, that's pulling in, that's where the presentation agent comes in, where if you wanted to attach a blinded resume, you can put that in as an attachment, or you can just include it in the text, but it's going to bring the appropriate information in directly to the client. And then we basically hit go, right? Again, you can see it's a multi-channel. Basically, they hit start campaign, and now it's going to start running in the background.
And so just like on the job, all of the records have got an Amplify tab, which are specific to the type of record you're looking at. They've all got suggested actions. So for anybody who uses automation, you know that we already do this, which is we track how recipients are engaging with content or what they're doing. So in this case, after we send that campaign, we may see that Bill has engaged with it. And now this isn't just in automation. This comes up into the Amplify dashboard. So you can actually see that Bill has recently clicked or engaged with the content or looked at our website or whatever. And a suggested action, he's hot. Maybe you want to call him at this point, whatever it might be. So we also know that, nobody is sitting on Bill's record waiting for him to do something all day, right? And 12 hours staring at Bill's record and being like, when is he clicking on my stuff? Nobody does that. So what we have showed you so far is we showed you the management dashboards for every individual record, right? A suggested action for Bill, if you happen to be looking at Bill's record, or what does the AI pipeline look like on a specific job. But the reality is, if you're going to be managing multiple jobs and multiple agents and multiple contacts and multiple outreach campaigns, so you got to be able to do it also from the top level. And so there is this top level Amplify dashboard, which, in this case, you'll see it is calling your attention to Bill among other contacts to review based on other things that are going on. And then that on the My Open Jobs, that whole flow, right, of recommended candidates and applicants and who's been screened and how many people have been submitted that you saw in every job, you now see for all of your jobs. So you can get a bird's eye view of all of those things. You see it for the outreach campaigns, you get the point, et cetera, et cetera. So you pull it all up to the top level. So you start your day differently. You come in and you go, okay, what are my agents up to? Where do I need to pay attention? And that is fundamentally how I think everybody's job is going to change, and you're going to be using these agents to drive your day. So that is Amplify. What we like to say about it is, and I hope you understand why now after looking at this, which is that you can make more placements and drive more profit with the same team because you now have AI that extends your reach and amplifies you significantly. So you're going to get more productivity, and you're going to get more throughput, and that's the whole idea. Okay, so where does everybody get started? There's a lot there, and the reason that in the beginning of this we sort of said here's the foundation and here's the build is because all of the pieces that lead up to using Amplify are super important. You've got to use automation. It's a great starting point to get your AI assistant up and running. If you want to use matching, which is kind of a really important piece of this thing, so our new search and match is available now. That's a really important part of the process. And then getting all these agents working, even prior to like bringing the chat and everything into the workflow, automation, agents, assistants, search and match, all that stuff's got to be dialed in and working for you. And so everybody's going to be at a different spot on this journey as well. So you're going to be, some folks will be jumping in at stage 0. Some folks will be ready for stage 3 already. And so you really think about that and talk to your account manager because they're going to help shepherd you through how you get to from where you are, wherever you are, to where the end state is.
That's right. And so we've got a lot of questions, and we've got 1 minute. So I don't know that we can get all of them answered. But the good news is this is the webinar that Matt was talking about, a closer look. And I think what we'll try to do on this, it's June 26th. We've got multiple weeks to get ready for this, is we'll embed all of the good questions into that talk track. So please try to attend that one because I think we'll be able to answer a lot of them. Maybe just to kind of broadly state a few trends. There's a lot of detailed questions about how the screening agent works and the conversion rates. And I guess the broad answer is almost every question that was asked, we've thought of those things and it accounts for that. And then as far as kind of conversion rates, what we see is about half the people that start the screen finish it, and about half the people that are invited, if it's a job application workflow, actually start the screen. So you get down to about 20% of people ultimately convert. And then the other thing that I think we've seen is around kind of bias and safety. And I guess just the broad answer there is that is always a key consideration as we're building these solutions. And we always do test for those. And we think about that anytime that we're providing you with a score. And again, remember that score just helps you to drive prioritization of the people that you're working with. It's not to say you should hire them or shouldn't. Ultimately, as we all know, that's the hiring manager's decision. It's just to drive your attention to the top potential candidates and how to interact with them. But know that we run them through all the appropriate tests. It's always top of mind whenever we're building these solutions.
All right. So we will get questions answered separately, but to Jason's point, all of them were sort of around a similar theme. And so at the highest level, I think we just answered that. And then make sure you go to Brittany and Ben's webinar and you get into the next level of detail. And I hope everybody's excited as we are.
Thank you. Looking
Thank
forward to it.
y'all.